the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through my value add apartment acquisition model. Now, when you open up the model, you'll find just a handful of tabs or worksheets along the bottom. As I build this model out, a few additional tabs will be added, but largely speaking, all of your assumptions are entered on the Underwriting tab, with your outputs being reported on the Summary tab, and I'll be adding a Property Cash Flow tab in the next few weeks. And so really you'll start here on the Version tab. This will give you an idea of any changes that have been made since watching this video and perhaps since the last time you downloaded the model. You would then move immediately to your Underwriting tab, where very similar to our apartment development model, our self-storage development model, if you've used either of those, the layout is very similar. Along the top here, we have a fixed set of rows that as you scroll up and down, those rows continue to be visible to you. And the reason that is because you have links or navigation buttons that will take you to different sections within your Underwriting tab. So for instance, we can click Description, and it will take us to the Investment Description section where we enter investment name, address, land size, building, gross buildable area, number of parking spaces. What's most important on this upper section from an underwriting standpoint is that you get the analysis begin date correctly and that you enter the sale date correctly. Now, by default, the sale date has a formula in it in which it looks at the last month of renovations and then adds 6 months to it. But again, this is just a default formula. It's a blue font required input cell. And so you'll change this date to whatever date in the future you plan to sell the property. From here, we move to investment cash flows. And so again, we can scroll down to it, or we can use our navigation bar here at the top, click investment cash flows. And within the investment cash flow section, we have our uses. All right, so there will be a purchase price because this is an acquisition model. And this purchase price is what you're acquiring the asset for. While this is a value add model, it can also be used for stabilized acquisitions. And in a future video, I'll show you how to do that. But more than likely, you're using this for a value add scenario. And so you'll enter your purchase price here, any closing costs or other acquisition related costs in this upper section, and that will get you to a total acquisition cost. Off to the left here, you choose when each one of these line items begin and end. And then you choose the method by which you are forecasting those costs. And so your acquisition costs more than likely are going to happen in time 0, right at analysis begin, and the projection method doesn't matter. However, as you move into your renovation budget, your hard costs, your soft costs, you'll likely be setting some schedule. So here we have renovation hard costs. In this particular case, and again, you'll be changing all of these blue font cells to match your inputs. Here, the 6.6 million begins to go out in month 1, and over an 18-month period in a straight line fashion. So each month is the proportionate share, equal proportionate share of the total 6.6 million over those 18 months. Gets us 366,667 in month 1, same in 2, same in 3, out to the end of the 18-month construction period for this line item. Now you can also toggle this, say, to an S-curve, right? An S-curve where it starts out slow and the funds are deployed over a normal distribution such that kind of in the middle here, you'll have the max dollars out and then tapering off near the end. Now, because this is likely to be an equal renovation of units in each month, I'm just going to keep this as straight line. However, you could also use detail. So perhaps you renovate less kind of methodically. Maybe it's every 6 months or every 3 months. You could choose detail. You'll notice out here to the right, these cells turn to blue, such that you can then manually enter some value. Now, if you don't add the correct amount. So if the sum of all of your manually detailed values out here to the right don't equal your budget, you're going to get an error alert here. Now it just lets you know that, hey, you haven't fully detailed the 6.6 million or whatever your budgeted amount is. I'll undo that. I'll turn this back to straight line. You also have soft costs that forecast out on a similar basis. And then we move into the sources, all right? And so these sources must match our uses. And this model is the most robust model in terms of the capital stack options that I offer. First off, you have up to 2 equity slices and 2 debt slices or tranches. And then you choose the funding order for these slices. Now I'll talk about this more in depth in a future video, but just briefly you can see right now by default we have the senior loan goes out first. Because we're funding an acquisition, that senior loan is secured by actual real estate, followed by the GP second, with the LP third, and then some junior loan. And you'll see this out to the right. This would be some sort of bridge loan, or maybe it's staged funding as part of your senior loan. Some sort of funding vehicle to help cover those renovation costs. Now, if you want to turn off any of them, you could just set the loan to value on the debt side to 0, and now there is no junior loan. You could adjust this. Let's say you want the equity to go out pari passu, just set the funding order to be the same, and now out to the right you'll see they go out pari passu. And so that's the capital sources module. Then we move into financing assumptions. Now you have the option between a refi or a sale. So the idea being, okay, if it's a refi, and there will always be a sale at the end of your analysis, but is this a long-term hold, maybe a 10-year with a refi at stabilization, or is there a sale at stabilization? We're calling stabilization when you have 100% of the units renovated. Now you do have the option, right, of selling or exiting before you hit 100%. That's also the option. But this right here looks at, okay, what happens when you have 100% of the units renovated? And you can either click the refi button and it opens up a subsequent funding section that you then need to adjust the term, the loan term of your initial debt, such that the loan term must end before or prior to your analysis end month. And if you recall up here at the top, your analysis end month or your sale date is there, okay? Or you can toggle it back to sale, and you won't then be using any subsequent financing. There won't be a refi mid-hold period. Beyond that, we go to, we can either click to it or we can scroll to it, the operating cash flow section. And what you'll find up top, growth rates by year, and then from year 5 and beyond is the same rate. And I've detailed out growth rates by both pre-renovation rent and post-renovation rent. So if you think that market rent at the renovated level is going to grow slower or faster than at the pre-level, then you can adjust for that, detail that. You have growth rates for other income, for operating expenses excluding taxes. We also have a growth rate for property taxes, and that, in many markets, property taxes grow at a different rate than your operating expenses. And then we have growth rates for your CapEx. Then we get into the operating expense line items. We have a unit mix table. And you'll notice on all of our line items within our operating statement, we have both pre-renovation and post-renovation. So you got pre-renovation rent, post-renovation rent, and then you choose the percentage of each unit type that has already been renovated. And so then how this works is, let's imagine right here, no units are renovated, so 0% for all of our unit types. That means that as of month 1, all units will be rented at this amount. And then up here at the top, we have roll to market assumptions. So when does the roll begin? Or meaning, at what point do we start having fully renovated units that we can rent at the post-renovation rents. And so our assumptions by default starts here. I put month 6. And if we come out here to the right, you'll see in the cash flows, the event line tells you when the renovation starts, right? Month 6. You'll also see there's a status, in place. That's your pro forma's in place. And then it goes to a rolling. And the rolling really means that a portion of the units are pre-reno, a portion of the units are post-reno. And you'll see out to the right here, the percentage rolled to market begins to grow until month 32, when 100% of the units have rolled to market or have been renovated. So we come out here to the right, month 32, 100%, and then the event reads reno end. Then we can continue scrolling to the right. You'll see sale in month 38, and then beyond that, not included. And that just lets us know that while down here there's some forecast for what the income and expenses would look like out in those months, this is when the analysis ends. These are not included in the returns. So we come back here. We move then into, say, concessions. You have concessions on a given length of the lease, how many months of free rent are being offered for both pre-reno and post-reno units, non-revenue model units. And then we have other income on a per unit per month basis, both pre and post-reno. You have general vacancy, pre and post. And then you have operating expenses on a per unit per year, or as a percentage. I should probably enter here as a percentage of EGR, effective gross revenue. See that there. And insurance, all right, taxes. Then we move down, you have net operating income, and value is determined on a direct cap basis based on NOI and some cap rate as defined here in the next section. Capital expenditures, and then you see the debt service for the initial debt, and then if you have subsequent funding for that subsequent funding. From here we move to reversion cash flows, and you'll see these pro formas are on a trended basis, meaning including growth, whereas before up here, these in place and stabilize are on an untrended basis. So you look at this is before we take into account these growth rates. But down here in the reversion section, this stabilized is trended, meaning this is after taking into account any growth over that period until this stabilization occurs. As we scroll down then, we can see where net operating income is for each, and then some valuation in place, stabilize, or after all the renovations occur, and then at the sale, with some cap rates. And how are the cap rates determined? Well, up here you'll see there's market cap rate today, cap rate at sale, and then of course some selling cost assumption. And that flows down through to stabilized value, and then we subtract out selling costs to arrive net proceeds from sale, less any loan payoff, to arrive at our equity proceeds from sale. So that's reversion. We can then go to property returns. And property returns I've broken out into two buttons. Property level returns and then partnership level returns. And all of these are under the returns section. So property level returns, of course, you have that on a unlevered and a levered basis, coming down from our DCF, investment cash flows, operating cash flows, reversion cash flows to some net cash flow line, either unlevered or levered. And we have an equity multiple and an IRR. Now at the very top in our fixed rows, you'll see that I have a property level IRR on a levered basis and a property levered equity multiple that I've just by default included at the top. And that way you can, as you're changing your assumptions, you can see how your property level levered IRR and levered equity multiple changes based on those assumptions. We also have some value creation or a value creation metric here where you can look at yield on cost either on an untrended or trended basis and see how that compares to your market cap rate as of stabilization or as of sale. So for instance, we go untrended, We can compare then the yield on cost versus the market cap rate to view what here we're calling a development spread. This is a value add deal, but it's the delta between your yield on cost and your market cap rate. And then again, we move into the waterfall. Two partners, GP, LP. This is a 4-tier waterfall. The LP must have a complete return of capital before the GP gets into the promote, even during operation. And so once the LP has hit some IRR with annual compounding and the preferred return that accrues, then the GP gets into the promote. You can set the promote percentage here. The assumption is that partnership is promoting the GP. So say with a 10% promote in the second tier, that means the GP would earn a 10% promote plus it would be distributed its pro rata basis or its pro rata share of any remaining cash flow or the other 90%. And so in this case, the GP has a 10% share of ownership, so it would earn a 10% promote plus 10 times 90% or 9%, such that in the second tier, distribution to the GP would be 19%, and so forth through third and fourth tiers. And then it just details out distributions and net cash flow, as well as contributions, which is up above in our capital sources section for each one of the partners. Now to finish, you'll come to the summary. And on the summary, this is again looking very similar to if you've seen our apartment development model. We have just a summary of property description. You can add strengths and weaknesses and a picture, some key assumptions and return metrics. And then down here below, I have dropped in a few charts. This tab is set to be printer friendly. And so you just hit the print button and this page will print out for you. And with that, it's a walkthrough of our value add apartment acquisition model. If you have any questions, please let me know. In the coming weeks and months, I'll be rolling out new features. And so likely what you see here is a scaled down version of the model that eventually you'll download and use, but this will at least get you started using the model. So thank you for your time.